Welcome back to the Green Beans Go channel. It's your host, me. A couple of caveats before you begin. The first is that I grew up very conservative. I live in the Midwest. I live in the Bible Belt. And I grew up in the church, and with the church comes the conservative policies typically. And, I feel like starting with that because I need you guys to know that the things that I'm going to discuss in this video are going to be related to sports betting, but you're also going to see maybe my bias or maybe my leanings or maybe my opinions, because this big, beautiful bill that has now passed, while it does affect sports bettors, and I'm going to do this because I think there is some gross overreaction on the sports betting side of things, it obviously affects and impacts more than just sports bettors, and it impacts the world. And I don't want to be over dramatic, but it does impact humanity. It does impact the less fortunate. It does impact people without the privilege that I certainly have. Being who I am, being where I was born, being what family I was born into, being a white man, right? And I know that there are going to be people who turn the video off right there. There's going to be people who say, here we go again, privilege. Nobody won. Let's start here before we talk gambling. I think these are important conversations. And while we're on this topic, I do have a platform, and I want to speak what I believe is the most. We'll say this. I don't want to put a label on it, but I want to speak what I believe is right, what I believe is best for the greater good, the common man. We'll start with this. Nobody chooses to be born. And I don't want to get philosophical, but nobody consents to a life on this earth. And after you're born, you don't choose the family you're born into. You don't choose what you look like. You don't choose where you live. You don't choose the social status. You don't choose anything. And I think there are people who are automatically in this country born into a better situation. Okay? And I think that this big, beautiful bill harms the people who are born, children who have, who have no say in anything. It harms them. So that's where I stand, just on the policy and the premise. And the last thing I'll add before we read how this affects gambling, because I am a sports channel, so we should keep it on topic, sir. We didn't come here for your leftist ideologies. Get all this soy-boy. Was that what it's called? Soy-boy? So-boy? What is so-boy? What is a so-boy? What is a so-boy? As a pejorative term, describe men to be lacking masculine characteristics. Yeah. I do want to say that regardless of which side you are on in terms of left or right, or maybe you don't care about politics or, any of those type of, wherever you align, I want you to consider the fact that our country right now, and for the longest time, bills are passed on the notion that a 814-page, I don't know the exact number, over 800-page document outlining things from border control, defense budget, Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP programs, student loans, gambling, all of those things are wrapped up into one, and 400 people come together and click yes or no. That's a horrible system. Left or right or in between. That's a horrible system. But here we are. Let's read this. This is from Closing Dime. There was a lot of stirrings on Twitter, a lot of conversation on Twitter about this, specifically gambling Twitter. And it was... I turned off my AC a while ago. I hit the power button and it's still blowing. And I'd like it to stop. Stop. This is the one that I think sums it up in the most understandable way. So Trump's big, beautiful bill will not be beautiful for sports bettors. I would owe over $55K in taxes 2026. Let's use myself as a real example. I have made $15,600 halfway through 2025. I'm going to double all my numbers to simulate a full year of betting. Assuming my ROI stays at 1.5%, my total winnings this year would be just over $2 million. My total losses would be about $2 million, but there is a difference of $31,000. That is his profit on the year. For 2025, I would pay about 24% in taxes on my total profit, so $7,500 in taxes, making my after-tax income $24,000 roughly. If this bill passes, and it did, so we'll just say that, and I use the same numbers for 2026, I would only be able to claim 90% of my losses. So that's the major piece of this gambling bill. Instead of being able to claim 100% of your losses, which makes sense, if you lost $1 million, you didn't lose $900,000. You lost $1 million. Why are we only claiming 90%? That doesn't make any sense. True. If you could only claim 90%, your total losses would be 1,800,000. So your total winnings would be 2,055,000. Your total losses would be 1,821 for a profit loss of plus $233,000. Well, no, you technically profited 31,000, but since you can only claim 90% of your winnings or your losses, 90%, not 100%, it would appear as if you have to pay money on your profit of $250,000. So if I owe 24% in taxes on this new provision, this $233,000, you would owe $56K, even though they only really made $31K. This would net you. You would be gambling, you would be making money in order to owe money, $24K. How can I be taxed more than I profited? This would destroy the gambling industry. Make sure you spread the word. Okay, so it did pass, and there is a representative from Nevada. Her name is Dinah Titus, and she is fighting against this. Now, let's start here. Does this make any sense? No. 0 cents. This defies logic. This defies common sense. How can you tell someone they owe taxes on money they did not technically make? This is dumb. I'm not going to argue that I like this. I'm not going to argue that this is a good thing. By golly, this is atrocious and defies what we know as common sense and math and logic. Okay, we'll start there. Now, I saw a video the other day of a guy that said, I don't know exactly what I want to say, but I know if I spend too much time trying to figure it out, I'll never make the video. And I related to that a lot. So we're going to just go through my stream of consciousness, my thoughts on this topic, because I'm not going to try to prove anything to you. I think all of us, anyone who's made it 8 minutes into this video knows that this provision, this law is asinine. It's idiotic. It's ridiculous. So let's rewind and let's talk about what the internet said. So gambling Twitter was all over this, specifically the sharp bettors, the profitable bettors, the bettors who do this for a living. And they should be. Don't get me wrong. They should be. This would kill their profession if they filed by the book. If they filed correctly, they would not make money. Unless their ROI was insane. Like they'd have to have over a 10% ROI, which is very, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's impossible to consistently pose a 10% ROI year after year after year after year. So it would kill the gambling industry, sure. We'll say this. Do I think this will be the way it is? No. I don't think they will keep this. I think they will figure out a way to amend this piece. They have to. So the gambling pros are upset, rightfully so. But one thing that sort of made me chuckle, made me laugh, a couple things, were this affects losing bettors too. This affects the recreational bettor as well. Okay, timeout. Like, I get your point. I get you're mad. But the recreational bettor, the casual bettor, the NFL better, okay, fine, I'll throw a little bit on MLB in the summer because I'm bored better. Guys, they're not reporting their taxes for sports betting. They're not. If they don't get a W-2G, if they don't make $600 in profit on a 300 to 1 or greater play, and they don't get a form, they're not reporting. So, one thing I was like eye roll about were these, big time gambling guys who, always are like, screw the degenerates, screw the losing bettors, screw these guys with no edge. Until now, they're important to my argument. Like, oh, it hurts the bettors who, are out there doing this for fun. Like, we're all in this together. No, you're not. You don't care about those guys, but it also doesn't affect them. They're not going to claim anything. They're not going to itemize their taxes to claim their losses. Okay? So we'll just say that. This affects a small population of the sports betting world. If you're watching this video and you're worried about this new law and you don't rely on sports betting for your income, you're fine. Okay? Like, I don't want to give out bad advice. You should always report your taxes. You should always file your taxes. I think, truly, taxes are a necessary thing in this world. I think we should be paying our taxes. I think certain people should pay significantly more than they do pay, right? I'm not anti-tax, but you're fine, all right? The IRS gets a form. If you get a form, file that. If you don't get a form, the IRS doesn't get a form. So if you made money and you want to report that income, please do. This is what I'll add as a side note. The current gambling tax code is atrocious. The current gambling tax code does not account for the fact that we can do this. That every American over the age of 21 in most states, with legalized sports betting, can do this from the time they wake up, from the time they go to bed. They can be spending money, winning money, losing money. And some states even have casinos. Ooh, you want to spin the hot pepper slot? You want to play a little blackjack after you got a BJ? A little BJ after a BJ? Can I interest you in a double BJ this evening? You can do it, right? The current tax laws are archaic. They are foul. They are atrocious. Taxes are meant to be confusing. Why? Maybe we should stop and think about that, America. Maybe, instead of being anti-tax or pro-tax, we should be, how about we just have taxes that make sense? How about we simplify the tax code for everyone? Because you technically, if you take the standard deduction, which most people watching this video likely take the standard deduction because they're middle class or lower middle class, right? Like, I'll just speak for myself. I take the standard deduction because I'm not rich, all right? It makes most sense for me to take the standard deduction because I don't own a business, I digress. You technically cannot net your gambling money without itemizing. And if you itemize, you lose your standard deduction. By the book, that's what it says. All right? And I would encourage you to double check all this because I may be missing important details or leaving out things. But regardless, if I'm paying taxes by the exact code, I cannot itemize, take my wins minus my losses. I profit X amount of dollars and just pay on that, unless I am itemizing and therefore I lose my standard deduction. Hey, here's an idea. Call me a liberal soy boy. Is it soy boy or soy boy? It's a soybean. It's a soy boy? That rhymes. It doesn't feel right. Soy boy, soy boy. Call me a liberal soy boy. Force every rec book. I'm not talking offshores. Go gamble on your offshores with your crypto and stay off I don't care. Do that if you want. I'm talking FanDuel and DraftKings. Force FanDuel and DraftKings to keep, they have the software. It's in their system. Force them to keep a plus minus profit loss for every player that makes a wager. At the end of a calendar year, come tax time, on December 31st at 11:59 p.m., mark that number down. This player made this much money because they wagered this and they lost this. That net sends off to the IRS. This player, Green Means Go, made $500 on DraftKings today. Okay? Great. Oh, FanDuel, I lost $700. That means I'm down $200. Well, guess what? The IRS receives that. I don't know how it will work, but it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. Make the books be able to track player net. Give the IRS all the player net information. Give me all the player net information. And let me file my taxes based on my net plus and minus. Oh, but no, you're a bootlicker. If you try to oppose that, you're bootlicking. And I'm not trying to gaslight you. But it shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be that difficult. And what it's making people do is just not pay their taxes. If they're winning better, they just don't pay if they don't get a form. Okay, so if you're worried about this and you don't do betting for a living, stop. It doesn't matter. Oh, yes, it does. Technically, it does. Oh, shut up. If you've never paid taxes on your gambling bets before 2025, you're not going to do it after. Let's be real with each other, please. Now, if you are someone who tracks religiously and you do this for a living and you know you make money, yeah, this would screw you over. But I'm here to tell you, Dinah Titus, Congresswoman of Nevada, and the people in charge, they're going to fix this. They have to fix this. I would be shocked if they do not fix this. So here's my last thing. As we wrap this up, and I'll save my, my liberal takes for now. I gave you a taste of my liberal takes at the beginning, and again, these are new things that I am thinking about in life. Part of it was due to my deconstruction of my evangelical ideologies. Part of it was due to having a daughter. Part of it was teaching in a public school for 6 years. There are things that I've experienced. Part of it was COVID. Part of it is the president, the current president, and the way that he acts and conducts himself. And again, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying this is how I think, and these are my opinions. And if you're someone who supports the president or supports, whatever policies, like, you're welcome here. Like, I want to have conversation. And if you're not interested, you can leave at this point. But here's what I'll say. I thought it was interesting how vocal people will be when they are impacted. Duh. I look across gambling Twitter, and if I'm making a generalization, the most outspoken people about this bill are upper middle class white men. That is who typically are professional sports bettors. I don't have data on that. That's a generalization, but judging by what I see online, judging by what I know about the industry, I've never been to Bet Bash, but I can imagine it is white men in their 20s to 50s who are not hurting to pay their mortgage or eat meals at night. I think that's a fair assessment. Guess what? I'm going to tell you a secret. Get real close. That's me too. All right? So I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to be holier than thou. I'm not trying to, but that's the community that was outspoken about this. And I had to sit back and say, one, the irony of, again, another generalization, but likely people who supported this current administration, likely people who said, make America great again, voted for this and are now facing the repercussions of things that don't make sense. And it's not like this president didn't show us that he was willing to do things that don't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And I'm not saying this couldn't have happened if Kamala Harris had been president. Like, I'm not saying any of those things, but in a vacuum, it's slightly ironic that 90% of gambling Twitter is probably MAGA, and they're the ones who are outspoken about this. And it's like, hey, whoa, yeah. So for the first time, this guy that people have told you is kind of sucks did something that you didn't like, and now you're going to be outspoken about it. And so I guess my thought is, it's interesting that we can be outspoken when we are impacted. And maybe the challenge in what I'm trying to do, because I didn't do this for a long time, and I'm not saying that everyone has the ability of the platform or the know-how or the anything to do this. Maybe even at the most minor level, just be conscientious of these things. What about we look at this bill and we say, how does it impact the world? How does it impact other people? It's 800 pages, but let's give less funding to public schools. Let's reward people for sending their kids and supporting private institutions. I am not a sociologist, but as a former teacher, I can tell you the kids who go to private schools, they're probably going to be fine. They've got food at home. They've got a roof over their head. They have a family, parents who probably read to them, care for them, buy them things. And there's no problem with private schools. If you want to go there, fine. But the kids in public schools and public education should be a backbone of this country. We should be supporting public schools. We should be flooding public schools with tax dollars. And it feels crazy that is a controversial stance. We should be giving kids in poverty resources, right? And the right wants to say, well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? There's no handouts, right? But they also want to look at the crime rates. They also want to look at law enforcement, and they also want to look at prisons, and they want to do all these things. And it's like, maybe if we gave these kids a chance who are more susceptible to that lifestyle. You know why people steal? You know why typically crime occurs? You know who is less likely to commit crimes? People who eat and sleep in a bed at night. People who know where they're going to go every night, and they know, by golly, if they want Chipotle on the way home, they can get it. And I didn't grow up like this. I grew up work hard. Right? They're not my problem. Right? The homeless did something to get that. Like if you're homeless, it's your fault. You're lazy. Right? I grew up like that. I thought like that for a while. And maybe there are minor instances. There are pieces of the puzzle that fit together in that way. But I look at this bill overall, and I say, where are we headed? And I think I know where we're headed, and I'm probably going to be fine, right? I have what I need. I'm taken care of. Like I can make money. I have a degree, right? I'm fine. But I look out and I say, okay, we're spending $170 billion on our defense, so we can have kamikaze drones and nukes and mile-long naval vessels. For what? I mean, truly, think about it. And I'm not anti-military. I respect those who have fought for the country, but I think at some point, we'll say this: we dip our toes in water we don't need to dip our toes in. I look at billions of dollars being invested into a wall. Billions with a B dollars being invested to build a wall to keep people out. Because after all, they're criminals, they're drug dealers. We don't want this in our country. They're people. And if they're criminals, let's arrest them for the crimes they've committed. And if they're people who have come here and they're not criminals and they're making America great again, if they're working hard, if they're contributing to a society and they are illegal, why don't we put things in place so that it's easy for them to check the boxes, to become legal? I saw a post of a man whose wife was taken by ICE, and he was like, wait, I thought Trump said that they were only taking the criminals and the, right? I mean, how much money has been wasted sending these people, the ICE, around to just destroy families, break up families? Like, really think about it. Taking money out of public schools, taking money out of nutrition programs. So, you know, there's more we could discuss, and I think you guys have heard enough. I think you guys get it. And I'm sure that, you know, people are going to have opinions on this, and I welcome them. I welcome differing opinions. I welcome support. I welcome anything that you guys feel is necessary to contribute to this conversation. I think it's an important conversation, and we can leave it there. I'm going to go take a nap.